Mitch Lawrence, SiriusXM NBA Radio, NBA columnist, the sporting news, and he joins us now on the Boardwalk Honda hotline as we got a lot of NBA to tackle, Mitch, as the first team, second team, third team All-NBAs were released today, and some interesting names on those lists. We got the playoffs tonight. Let's start with that. As the Raptors and the Bucks, we're all tied up here. What do we know about these two teams heading into Game 5 that maybe gives you a feeling one way or the other?
Oh, good question. I mean, look, the thing about Toronto, you always wonder about on the road, who's going to produce other than Kawhi? Is Kawhi going to be okay physically? There's all this talk about him wearing down. He's got problems with a foot, problems with a leg. I would think he'll be okay. He only had, 19 the other night. But I just, with them, the role guys, they're hit and miss, especially in these road games. So we'll see. And then in terms of Milwaukee, what we know is they can't play any worse defensively than they played the other night. That was the worst defensive game of the postseason. They were run out of the building. It was embarrassing. Just something I didn't expect. I thought they'd play a lot better than they did. I still like their chances, obviously, because they're at home. I think they'll get Giannis off some way, somehow. And who knows, maybe Brogdon starts instead of Mirotic. There's talk about that. He's a more dangerous offensive player. He can do more, helps get that offense, I think, going a little bit more than Mirotic. We'll see if Mike Budenholzer makes any change. But those are the kind of things we're looking at here in a Game 5.
Yeah, and I know, that game in Toronto, the big thing I saw there, Mitch, and, one of the things I like Toronto to win the series. I actually picked them to win the series, so I like them more than I like the Bucks. One of the reasons is, they're very good defensively, and I think you're starting to see they're giving Antetokounmpo some issues. He's been under 50% shooting in every game. He's not getting to the line nearly as much, and I wonder if that could travel. They did win a game in Philly, but the big thing is you had Ibaka, Powell, and Van Vliet. You wonder if they're finally, 3 rounds in, gaining a little confidence.
Well, that's what Nick Nurse wants, right? We'll see how they play away from Drake and all that nonsense up in Toronto. But, the thing about Kawhi, he's done a very good job on Giannis. And the other thing you got to remember, too, this is Giannis' first time in a conference finals. This is their first time in a conference finals. They hadn't been out of the first round. How do they handle, especially tonight, this pressure? First time, they hadn't lost 2 in a row since the regular season. They've been phenomenal until this point. So there's a lot of stuff that we're going to find out about their mental toughness that way. The other thing about Giannis, too, is he's not a finished product. If you look at the way he plays, if you look at the fact that he's not a great shooter at this point, he doesn't, come down the court and all of a sudden nail a 17-footer. There's some things, even though he'll probably win the MVP, there's still some room to grow. The ceiling is still pretty amazing. So, we'll find out a lot more tonight. In the meantime, Giannis, I guess because he's now got back-to-back All-NBA berths on the All-NBA team, he stands to get this ridiculous, $250 million extension. So it means he'll basically be the richest person in the state of Wisconsin once he signs that in the offseason.
Yeah, and, keep in mind, too, you mentioned that they hadn't lost back-to-back. When I watched the Bucks the other night, see if you agree with me or not, I kind of harken back to that Sixer-Boston series last year where the Sixers were just very one-dimensional offensively and not athletic enough on the wings defensively, and it really hurt them in that series against the Bucks. Well, many people think the Bucks are better because they have Antetokounmpo, but did you get that feeling that, man, they're kind of one-dimensional offensively, and that could be a problem with basically you're down to a 3-game series?
Well, when they're not hitting their threes and they're not running and they're playing half-court offense, that's when they have a problem. Yeah. That's what we've seen from them. So we'll see if they can get the fast break going again. It's like everybody. It's like Toronto. Toronto needs to run. All these teams need to run because in the half-court, they've just got a bunch of unreliable guys. Sometimes Ibaka gives it to you for Toronto. Sometimes Lowry gives it. So, how many nights do we say, oh, boy, there's another bad game from Kyle Lowry? So, we'll see how it shakes out. I picked the Bucks to win. I still pick them. I actually picked them in 6. I don't know if they can win a game with Drake heckling from the sidelines up there, but I give them still a hell of a chance to win tonight.
It's like big bad voodoo daddy up there, Drake, putting the kibosh on this series so far. It's been very entertaining, very intriguing, but,
yes.
In your mind, Mitch, which team has more to lose by losing this series? In other words, will these teams be drastically different next year if they don't, in fact, make it to the finals? They both have Milwaukee has a lot of free agents, and Toronto has one big one.
Right. It's Toronto because if they lose Kawhi, then they're looking at a rebuilding program because they're going to look to move Ibaka and Kyle Lowry. That's really the game plan there. That's the thing that, they roll the dice on bringing him in for 1 year. It's like a Paul George rental. I've happened to think since day one that he's on his way to Clipperland or someplace else. We'll see. We'll see if I'm right or wrong. I was wrong about Paul George, but, Paul George was telling everybody who would listen over the years that he just wanted to be a Laker. So that's why I went on that assumption. He's telling these teammates in Indiana as he's playing there he wants to be a Laker, so that didn't pan out. But I think Kawhi will be a Clipper. But, for Milwaukee, I know they've got some free agents, but the big thing is that they've got their centerpiece intact. They've got, obviously, Giannis is going to stay there. He's making no noises about leaving. I don't know who they're going to be able to add or whatever, but they've got a very good coach. So, you know what, they got a lot going for them. And as long as Giannis is there and they keep a lot of their core intact, they're going to be formidable now in the East for years to come.
You mentioned first-team All-NBA, Giannis, James Harden, Paul George, Steph Curry, and Jokic got first team. So they gave him the hat tip for his great season, first team there. But you mentioned Antetokounmpo getting that contract opportunity now. That is going to be him getting first team could be crippling to the Bucks.
Well, you know what? You have a new arena, so you know what? You got to make some money. And I don't know how financially crippled they're going to be, but they definitely have to start spending some big-time money for him. The thing that I look at with these teams is, Oklahoma City, they got two guys on first and second. They got a Paul George on first and Russell Westbrook on second. They won 49 games. I mean, this is for a regular season award. People are so caught up with Russell Westbrook and the multiple triple-doubles. I had some other problems, too. Kawhi Leonard missed 22 games. He gets second team. LeBron, okay, now LeBron's hurt, so there's a more legitimate thing. And I know Curry made it a couple of years ago playing 50-odd games. LeBron with 55. But people are, the thing I tweeted about right away was I would rather have Klay Thompson than Kyrie Irving, okay, Russell Westbrook, Kemba Walker, and Damian Lillard. Those are the guys who made second and third team, wouldn't you? I mean, Klay Thompson, and people are like, well, it's a regular season award. Well, let me ask you a question. I know the Warriors didn't win, 73 games. But still, Klay Thompson, I mean, come on, he can't get an all-NBA deal. And Kevin Durant, by the way, is second team. And he's still considered like he's either better than LeBron by some people, or people still rate LeBron. It's amazing how this all-NBA stuff works. Now, I don't vote. Yeah. I don't have a vote anymore. But I'll tell you what, this whole thing where your future money is tied to the voting, that's no good.
I was going to say, was that collectively bargained by the players that they allowed this to happen?
Yes, that's a sure. That's a collectively bargained deal. And so that was one of the big stories that came out of the CBA when that got the most recent deal. And I'm telling you, that is just – I know a lot of writers who won't participate because they feel like, look, you can't help or hurt a guy. You can't be involved indirectly in contract negotiations, but that's the way the league's done it. So it's a bad system. But I also get a kick out of people are screaming about Bradley Beal not getting an all-NBA team. They won 32 games.
Right.
32 games. You know what? When I used to vote it this way. And it's much bigger than the All-Stars. These are supposed to be your 15 top players for a season. I used to look at who made the playoffs. If you didn't make the playoffs, unless you led the league in scoring or did something else phenomenal, I wasn't going to put you in. Unless you won like 48 games and finished ninth. But I got to have guys who are, making the playoffs, difference makers, and not guys who are playing for 32-win teams who are putting up big numbers. Come on, you got to be better than that. So people crying about Bradley Beal, you got to be kidding me. I know they didn't have John Wall, and I know Washington's in a bad, but come on, you can't be crying about Bradley Beal when when Washington in an inferior conference won 32 games. That's not good enough. And I'll tell you what, Kemba Walker lucked out because I wouldn't have voted him in. Other people did. They only had 39 wins. They finished, I think, ninth in the East. Yet when he gets all NBA, he gets himself a huge, big payday. So good for him. But I just don't like that system. Yeah, no, I mean, we were talking here earlier in the show because Joel Embiid got second team, and he had that clause in his contract that if he was first team, he was eligible for the Supermax. You're almost hoping your guys don't get these accolades because Portland with Dame Lillard and Charlotte with Kemba, they've got to pay these guys more money now. And did you see the reaction of Klay Thompson? It's a classic. It's all over the internet when he was told that he didn't make the All-NBA team. It cost him $30-odd million or more. And it's just a really amazing video in this day and age. to see that. And his basic point was, do you really think there are this many guards better than me? I mean, and I know a lot of it is, well, people say, hey, Mitch, that's the regular season. Come on, Klay Thompson's got to be one of the top 6 guards in the NBA, and he brings it in May and June. I think that should count for something here. I know it's regular season, but even still.
Yeah, man, I know we've got we'll get into free agency here in just a couple of minutes with Mitch Lawrence. I do want to get your thoughts real quick on the Warriors, who are going to be sitting around for 9 days. That's probably the best shot that either of these teams from the East have, right? Is that you might be able to catch, because I just don't feel that these finals are going to be very compelling. But them sitting out 9 days is probably the best shot they got.
Yeah. Well, you know what? First of all, one of these two teams is going to be playing at home. So the pressure is going to be on them to win and protect home court. I'm talking about Milwaukee or Toronto, right? They had better records than Golden State.
Yes.
Golden State will be coming in. Usually it takes a half to get the rust off. We'll see how far behind Golden State is if at all. They're famous for these amazing third quarters. I look at these teams from the East, all the pressure will be on them. Like I said, whole home court. That's a lot for young teams. That's a lot for even a team like Toronto, where guys are experienced. They've had a couple of guys that they make it. Kawhi, who's a finals MVP. Danny Green, who's been in the finals. Ibaka was in the finals, I think, years ago with Oklahoma City. That's
yes, he
fine.
was.
The thing about Golden State is that I still like them to beat either team, but the playing field is obviously more level without Kevin Durant. And the report today, if you're a Golden State fan, you got to be a little nervous. It sounds like he's going to miss the first 2 or 3 games at the least. It sounds like this calf deal was pretty serious. Golden State's really never divulged how serious it was, but with him not playing, this will be now several weeks since that game against Houston where he got hurt and missed the last 14 minutes of Game 5. But I like Golden State, and if Durant comes back and he's fine, then this is this could be a very quick series. Could be a quick series anyway.
Yeah.
It's amazing though. If you're a Portland Trailblazer fan, right? I know you had some real competitive games and you blew some double-digit leads, but you still got swept, and Kevin Durant never saw the court. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
And I know you were the inferior tier team. You didn't have Nurkic, but even still.
They were up 17 in every game and lost.
Yes. Yes, they did.
Crazy.
And you know what? You know what? They're a flawed team. We know that. Their guards are, the series to me was, you knew they were in trouble because as much as people like Lillard and McCollum, and I like them too, when they go into every other series, they've got the better backcourt, except for that series. That series, they don't have the better backcourt, especially when Steph Curry now can reassume his number one role as he does in the pre-Durant years, Mike,
right,
where all of a sudden he's giving you 35, 36 a game, and Klay Thompson's knocking down break shots, and Draymond Green is playing out of his mind like he did in that Game 3, where he just basically it was like a masterpiece performance for him. So, yeah, Portland, they had a nice run. They had a nice year. They got the luck of the draw being on the other bracket, right? They didn't have to, they still had to win a Game 7 in Denver, but an inexperienced Denver team. And then when they met up with Golden State, Lillard didn't have it. Whether he was injured or not doesn't matter. McCollum didn't give them what they needed to. And to play against Golden State, even without Durant, you saw they still got a long way to go.
Mitch Lawrence, SiriusXM NBA radio, longtime NBA columnist here. Are we short? Let me ask you this. I've thought about this too. Are we shortchanging a little bit Toronto? I mean, they won 58 games. Kawhi missed 22. I mean, if they win half of those 22 games, that's 68 wins.
Well, they did a nice job without Kawhi. Here's the problem for the Toronto fan. If Kawhi doesn't do this load management thing, and by the way, he shouldn't have made the all-defensive team either. It's amazing how the media has gotten so soft over the years. They're aiding and abetting this it's a terrible thing, this load management stuff. If Kawhi had played more, they probably would have finished in first place. Then they'd have Game 7. If they have to go to Game 7 and be on their home court.
That's true, too.
So, the big argument up there was, well, isn't load management helping? I mean, I've seen Kawhi being hobbled now. What difference did it make that he sat out games before if he's having problems now? But, look, Toronto, we all know, for the most part, you look at that team and you go, yeah, Kawhi Leonard, if he's healthy and he's focused, he is probably the best player in the East because he's a finals MVP. And then after that, Kyle Lowry is better as a third banana. Now, Siakam has had some ups and downs after the early. He had ups and downs against Philly, right? He had a great series against Orlando, but now he's had some ups and downs. So here's the problem for Kawhi. He really doesn't have a legitimate number 2 option who he can depend on game in and game out. And I think that's what's going to catch up ultimately with Toronto. And plus, we have to see how Kawhi manages throughout the next 2 or 3 games, because if he continues to have problems physically, then I don't like the chances at all.
I want to get your quick take on a couple of free agents here, and just I know that season is a little off, but I don't know that the finals has the juice behind it, and we're all anticipating what's going to happen here. Are you a believer that Durant is gone?
Well, it's interesting. I hope you guys saw what his business guy, Rich Kleiman, who allegedly was steering him to the Knicks, and you heard all this Knicks talk. Knicks fans are just anticipating he's going to come here. He's saying that Durant doesn't know, which I tend to believe. Durant probably doesn't know. Now the Clippers apparently, you hear all this stuff, and we're going to hear for weeks now about how the Clippers, they have a chance. You're going to hear how Golden State, he's going to go back to Golden State. I don't think anybody's really going to know until, I don't think he's going to, first of all, I don't know when he's going to make up his mind, but obviously his mind's not made up. So I would say Golden State, to me, still has a very good chance to get him back. It is interesting that the Clippers apparently, which we all knew, the Clippers are going to make a run for he and Kawhi. It looks like they're going to have enough money. They got to, I think, make a couple moves, but especially with Gallinari. But you know what? Kevin Durant looks like he's in play. But for Knicks fans, I think it looks like they have to come to the realization that it's not an automatic that he's coming to New York with Kyrie Irving.
All right. Do you feel that Toronto has any shot to get Kawhi back?
Well, I'd have to say they have a shot. But I said for a long time, I'm going to stick to my guns, that I think he wants to go back to Southern California as much as he may like Toronto. And I think that there's a situation where he's going to get a ton of money. If he can go there with Kevin Durant or some other big name free agent, that, you know what, that could be a better situation than staying in Toronto with what he has. We'll see. So, but you always have to say, after what happened with Paul George, you always have to say a guy who, what you think is going to go, and in Paul George's case, like I said, Paul George is telling everybody he wanted to be a Laker. When push comes to shove and they get the max money, of course the Toronto Raptors, like Oklahoma City, can pay their players more than the Clippers can. We'll see what Kawhi wants to do, but I still think he's going to land in L.A.
All right. What about Kyrie? I know some possibility about him going back with LeBron.
I don't think so. I don't think he's going to go back with LeBron. I don't think he liked that experience. I think he liked winning the title, but when you're playing second banana to LeBron, it's a very, and you want to be, the man like he is in Boston. That's a very difficult proposition. The big thing with with Kyrie, first of all, I think he made like second team or third team All NBA.
Second team, Kawhi.
Are you kidding me? Second team.
Kyrie. Kyrie had second team.
Kyrie. He made second. I mean, come on. To me, and it was magnified in the playoffs, but he was no kind of great leader in the regular season. His team only won, 48, 49 games, whatever it was. I can't quite believe it, but all right. A lot of that's popularity contest. But look, in terms of him leaving Boston, I think the Boston game plan, look, as poorly as he played against Milwaukee, as much as you looked at it and you said, he cannot be our number one option, he cannot be a leader, he's got problems, obviously. There are now questions about coachability with Brad Stevens. There are obviously questions about his interaction with younger players like Tatum and Brown and those guys. And then you say, all right, would Boston still give him the max money? Yeah, because talent in his case trumps all. And I think they're going to want to keep him, even if he wants to leave. And I think they're going to sell him on staying by saying, we're going to go get Anthony Davis. And if they can get Anthony Davis, and they've got a lot of assets, they've got the players, they've got picks, guys like Tatum, guys like Brown, I think Kyrie will stay. He'll get the max money, and now he'll get a chance to play with Anthony Davis. I would expect a lot of stuff's going to happen. When we talk about free agency, Mike, a lot of stuff's going to be determined by, or could be determined by, I should say, what happens with Anthony Davis. I don't think the Knicks have the assets that Boston does. And Boston's been talking about Anthony Davis, it seems like, for 5 years about getting him. And I don't think Danny Ainge is going to stop now.
All right. After those top three, it gets really interesting because you got the Kemba Walker now with this new pay scale for him. Can Charlotte afford to bring him back? Do they even want to pay him that price? So that's a very intriguing story with Kemba, which could make him a very interesting guy on the open market.
Absolutely. If the Knicks can't get Kyrie Irving, I could see them paying Kemba Walker a max money for a guy who you're getting off another team. Obviously less money than Charlotte. I could see the Lakers going after him. Of course, here's my deal on the Lakers, and you might enjoy this one. The Lakers have all this dysfunction, right? And it's, we know that playing with LeBron is a very difficult thing for a guy who wants to be another star. Just ask Kyrie Irving. He wants to be the man. But you have the whole LeBron situation, right? Then this week, Magic Johnson comes out and basically nukes the Lakers and lays out for everybody how it's a totally dysfunctional mess, how Jeannie Buss can't make a decision on her own. She's swayed by 15 people who are in here, whether it's Rob Pelinka, Kobe Bryant, Phil Jackson, Kurt and Linda Ramos, and on and on and on. And there's so much dysfunction swirling in the organization. The perfect player to join LeBron James is Jimmy Butler. He would embrace all that stuff. He would say, I could go in there and solve everything. That is, to me, it's the perfect landing spot for Jimmy Butler.
That would be bad news for Philly because they would lose Butler. Then they have to make a decision on Harris. If they bring back Harris, they don't have enough money to bring a second guy in, right? So they would be a team that would be searching for that secondary guy. And I don't know which of these secondary guys is most attractive to you, but none of them are Jimmy Butler.
No, and the other interesting thing is that Brooklyn obviously has their eyes on a bunch of these guys. Now, I don't know if they're going to get a meeting with Kevin Durant. There's talk that Kyrie Irving wants to come to Brooklyn. I'll believe that when I see it. But Brooklyn has always been mentioned for Tobias Harris. I don't think they're going after Jimmy Butler. I don't think he fits their culture. I think if they feel like, you know what, we're going to re-sign D'Angelo Russell, we can't have Jimmy Butler within 5 miles of D'Angelo Russell. That will be a disaster because he'll just kill that kid. So Tobias Harris could be.
Didn't Butler's reputation get somewhat fixed in Philly?
I don't think so. I think there are a lot of people who still look at him and say, you want to know something? If you have if you have players who you're building around who are young, that's a bad situation. You would need to have very strong veteran people in a locker room to deal with Jimmy Butler. Otherwise, he could run amok and pull his Attila the Hun stuff that he's done in Minnesota, a little bit in Philly. So we'll see. But, no, I don't think he's fixed his reputation at all. And I think the other thing that's going against him is that people don't look at him as like, we can give him 4 or 5 years. We got to give him maybe 2 years or 3 years because they wonder about Jimmy Butler holding up physically and on, which may be unfair. But I think that's what you hear about.
There's some very interesting names: Middleton, Russell, Porzingis, Vucevic, DeMarcus Cousins is back on the market. Al Horford going to opt out at $30 million. It looks like you've got Lopez, who was a huge steal for $3 million this year. His value's gone up. Mirotic could be an interesting name. Patrick Beverley's on the market. This is going to be a fun offseason.
Oh, it's a great, and obviously anytime you have a player of Kevin Durant's stature on it, it's great, and especially when we don't know where he's going to go. And you mentioned it's interesting. We haven't talked about DeMarcus Cousins. And DeMarcus Cousins, some people think he actually might be back before Kevin Durant. We'll see on that. And Mirotic and the guys in Milwaukee. I was wondering. I never thought Chris Middleton. He's a nice player. To me, he's not a number 2 star on a team. He's your 3rd best player on a championship team. How much money are they going to give him? That's going to be very interesting to see because he's had some big ups and downs in the playoffs, and he doesn't have a huge resume at this point. So we'll see about all that. But, this is going to be a fun summer, Mike.
All right, looking forward to it. Mitch Lawrence, everybody, SiriusXM NBA Radio. Mitch_Lawrence on Twitter to follow him there. And we will have more conversation on this offseason. The NBA Finals would start next week. And, of course, tonight's Eastern Conference Game 5. Who do you like tonight? You like Milwaukee?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Milwaukee tonight. We'll see what they have to play defensively. They can't play worse. So I got to start with that, and I got to see the Greek Freak show up and show everybody that he can get away from Kawhi Leonard's defense and give a big game.
All right, he goes Milwaukee in Game 5 tonight. We'll have it at 7:30. Mitch, you the man. Take care, pal.
Thanks, Mike.
Mitch Lawrence, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline.